Good morning, everybody. It's great to be here in Miami. So I guess we'll talk about markets and investing, startups, public markets. Tiffany, you're launching, and I think you launched today, an NFT-gated community platform. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
I'm happy to be here. I'm Tiffany Zong, and we just launched Islands this week, which is the Web3 community platform. And we announced our recent fundraise led by Alexis Ohanian, which only makes sense since he's the OG community builder.
Got it. Obviously, he co-founded Reddit, and what you're building is NFTs plus Reddit. So in order to get into your subreddit, as it were, you have to have an NFT. Kathy, you manage over $65 billion in a series of ETFs. You have one that has a little bit of crypto in it that's on the side. And the markets have been absolutely demolished in exactly the area of your excellence and expertise. You've been doing this since 2014, and in the last 48 hours, the high growth tech sector has been absolutely demolished, and you've been doubling down and buying more of the companies you love that are on sale. What has the last 48 hours been like for you?
As I told our team this morning, this is when our long-term performance is established. What we do now is creating our performance for the future. So if we're looking at our forecast, so we have a 5-year investment time horizon, and in mid-February, if you had looked at our forecasts, which assume that our valuations are going to be crushed down to FANG-like multiples in year 5, which we really don't think will happen because these companies are going to be much less mature than FANGs. In mid-February, the compound annual rate of return that we expected, this is based on enterprise value to EBITDA, was roughly 15%. So a doubling over 5 years, not bad, but that's our minimum hurdle rate of return. Today, that number is close to 40%. So this means nearly a quintupling over 5 years. And so just keep your eye on the prize, you know, and these are the companies that they're typically not large parts of indexes. What's happening right now is the index strategies are what we believe moving into bubble-like territory. They're going to be destroyed by the innovators. So we're looking forward to some signs that indeed is happening.
And are there names you particularly like? I saw that you were buying a bunch of Robinhood as the lockup expired. I was an early angel investor in full disclosure and still hold my shares. I'm holding for the long term, but yes. I saw you were buying a lot of Robinhood and some other companies. What do you think is on sale right now? Because you publish every night your trades.
Yeah, we do. We disclose our holdings at the end of every day, and we also publish our trades. Initially, we did it in 2014 because market makers were scared to death that we would turn our portfolios over and catch them flat-footed. And so we said, okay, we'll tell you what we've traded. And we used to do it during the day when we were really small. Now it's not possible to do that. So yes, what have we been trading? We're buying Robinhood. We're looking for the digital wallet winners. Robinhood is in contention, Coinbase, Square's Cash App. We think PayPal's Venmo, perhaps less so. So we're looking for the winners, and we're looking at digital wallets in a way that most financial analysts out there are not. So now you're dealing in the private world. We're operating in the public world. Most analysts, financial services analysts, are focused on banks, which we think are being hollowed out by digital wallets, DeFi, and so forth. And so they are not pricing these public companies the way we think they should be priced, if we're right, and these companies have a shot at that digital wallet play. And we're also buying Zoom and Twilio. So what I don't think people recognize out there in the traditional asset management world is that we have not had a refresh cycle in the communications part of the enterprise tech stack, which is the largest part. It's a $1.5 trillion global opportunity. We haven't had a refresh in 30 years, but COVID...
From Microsoft Office, basically.
Yeah, well, that's exactly, but I'm also thinking about Cisco,
Sure.
and Polygon and, the old telecommunications stack, right? And so we think that COVID last year and that crisis has inspired a wholesale refresh, which the traditional world is not pricing in.
Let me ask in the audience, has anybody here bought an NFT in the last year? Raise your hand. It's about half of the audience, maybe. And how many people here have traded a stock in the last year? Raise your hand. Everybody, almost. How many people, well, so that would mean some number of people have actually done both. When you look at NFTs, and Tiffany, what do they represent to you? Do they represent a collectible and a piece of art? Do they represent membership in a club? Or do they represent some type of economic opportunity similar, but obviously slightly different than a stock that Kathy is trading?
NFTs ultimately represent community and aligned incentives. And I think that's the reason why half of the room has invested in NFTs, right? NFTs is bringing in a whole new paradigm shift, bringing us from Web 2 to Web 3, where participants are actually able to capture the upside in the communities they're a part of. And they're able to find hyper-specific communities in the niches and interests of what they care about. And as a result, they can help grow the community and capture value along the way, both the creators and the collectors. So now everyone wins, and it's a rising tide lifts all islands in this scenario. So
in your vision of the world, this would be like owning equity or stock in Reddit if you were running a subreddit, correct?
Right, and we've seen the example with Wall Street Bets and GameStop pushing it over 1,000%. In growth because of one subreddit that came together and rallied together as a community to do so. And so that shows the power of the community. Now imagine if all of the people in the subreddit actually owned a percentage of the company and was able to help drive the future of the roadmap and product development and where that company actually goes, which is what you can do now with these token-gated communities.
So the cynical view of what happened with GameStop, and Kathy, I'd like to get your feedback on it as well, is that would be market manipulation and illegal. So people pumping and dumping will get you put in jail. So you're speaking of this as if I'm reading into it correct from your tone, that this is a revolution and amazing for the people who've been around the block for a little bit. This would be securities fraud.
So that's an
Speak
interesting...
for your whole generation and everybody on Wall Street Bets.
Yes, let me do that.
Yes.
So that's an interesting interpretation, right? And obviously, I think that it's very different from, obviously, GameStop is a public company, and it's just, sure, you can classify it as potential fraud, but also it's more so the long-term community is more important than just, hey, we're buying and we're selling this. Right? Because they don't actually capture long-term equity ownership or upside in building the community together. And so I think that's also a very important thing to note with Web3.
Kathy, as a market participant for decades and somebody who is the fiduciary of tens of billions of dollars, when you see a bunch of anonymous accounts pumping and dumping, explicitly saying that and coordinating the manipulation of stocks, does that give you pause? I don't want to lead the witness anywhere here, but,
Actually,
it's being recorded.
No.
Probably not streamed.
I'm very interested by this phenomenon. I'm delighted that millennials are getting involved with our marketplace, other marketplaces as well, other communities. GameStop, we don't own it. And in fact, the SEC came out recently, and I think this was in the last week, said that they did not believe that this was market manipulation. So this is the market at work, and there are people who believe that GameStop, which has come from the old world, will be able to morph into the new world and adapt. We don't tend to invest in that kind of company. We're much more focused on pure plays because there is so much to overcome. Just to give you an example of that, in the auto space, We won't invest in GM or Ford because even though they have R&D dollars that in 2014 when we started ran circles around Tesla's R&D and in fact their sales. But they have such big leaps to make. 95, 96, 97% of their auto production today is gas-powered. They have to make it to electric. Tesla's already there, and it can keep pushing the envelope. So what I like about and I don't mean to point to you about GameStop, but what I like about it is millennials are engaged, getting involved, excited about equity ownership, NFT ownership, being parts of different communities, and they learn very quickly. You know, one thing that I learned so I'm a baby boomer, as if it's not obvious, and in the early 80s when I was starting my career, a person named Stan Salvikson, he was the chief strategist at Merrill Lynch at the time, made one observation that made his career. He said, you know, these baby boomers are moving into their income earning years. I think this is the beginning of a very long-term bull market, and it was a 20-year bull market. There is a person, Tom Leaf from Fundstrat, many of you may know him. He is using the same analogy. This is what's happening now, the millennials, this is the baby boom echo.
And one would argue that it's happening at a much increased
Absolutely.
And with much more sophistication.
Yes.
I asked the question as the moderator, but my personal belief, if anybody cares, is that if people are allowed to gamble in Vegas, they should be allowed to gamble on stocks, and they should be able to invest in private companies, and we should just get rid of the accreditation laws and let people have a test.
Couldn't agree with you more. Couldn't agree with you. I think the accreditation laws are un-American. They are un-American.
Yeah.
And we are talking to the SEC about this, and
It's evolving.
It's evolving.
That it's going to be a test at some point.
It's evolving, potentially a knowledge test, which would be much more American.
I mean, you get one to drive a car or own a gun in some states. Other states, you just get the gun, but yeah.
Yes, and stay tuned. ARC is all about democratization and transparency and disruptive innovation. We are working with the SEC to evolve a strategy which would include public and private entities in one wrapper, and open it up and get away from the accreditation rules.
Tiffany, if NFTs represent membership in a club, when will this membership have benefits other than looking at a JPEG?
They can have benefits on day one. Or even before, right? Because
they can, but what benefits do you see them having, I guess would be a tighter question, because I haven't seen any exact benefits other than being able to change your profile picture on Twitter and dunk on other people.
It can be anything you think of, really, because this is just a community, and you can think of all the ways of how you want to reinvest back into the community. Now, with NFT sales into a community, you can use the money that you've made from the NFT sales, you put it into a shared treasury, and you're able to reinvest that treasury and have your community vote on even how you spend that treasury. Whether that goes towards throwing yacht parties, like an example is Bored Ape Yacht Club,
Sure.
where they have one of the strongest communities in the NFT space. And obviously, like, the space is still very new and it's still very early, and all of the different use cases that people are thinking of are still rising and still coming to life. But one of the examples was they invested both into digital experiences for their community, whether it's a gated chat room, but even like a gated graffiti wall that only owners could access on their website. Or a gated merch store where only owners could buy specific custom merch. And in person, a couple weeks ago at NFT New York City, they actually threw a real yacht party to their name, and only owners of a Bored Ape could enter, as well as various other events where only owners could attend. And so you're able to now very easily gate access, sell access, swap access in a matter of minutes because it's Web3 and it's on the internet, right? You can just send a JPEG and transfer it to a friend, sell it to a friend, sell it to anyone, really. And now others can get access to
So a way
these
for
events or
people
these communities.
to think of these, perhaps, Kathy, as a next generation golf club membership that's evolving, or a Soho House membership, right, or Harvard Club or whatever. When you look at cryptocurrency, Kathy, and you and I operate in highly regulated spaces, you have to be very careful about what you say in public equities. I have to be very careful about what I say investing in private companies. When you look at people buying into cryptocurrencies on a global basis without KYC in wallets, and they're buying it and have no use for the token, have never used it for any utility, and are buying it 100% based on speculation, and 100% of them will report they're buying it based on it appreciating, how is that not a security?
Well,
And does that concern you that we've basically created a shadow economy of digital stocks that is completely unregulated?
well, it's unregulated now. The regulators are beginning to look at this in an attempt to protect those who, could lose, lose purchasing power, lose wealth, and so forth. So we'll see what happens there. In the early days of innovation, there's a lot of chaos, always. It's messy. It's very messy. But that's part of what gives us a sense of, okay, let's try and make sense of this and see what's going to rise like a phoenix from this chaos. That's where we are right now. So I do think a more interesting thing that's going on, and this has to do specifically with venture capital. It seems as though that there's a little bit, and it's because of venture capital, there's this sense that the Web3 world is evolving away from Bitcoin, especially Bitcoin, and perhaps Ether, into these cheaper, faster,
Better.
better. But what they forget is the more features and the more centralization, which is what really what is really happening here, whether it's Solana or Avalanche or Polkadot. My son is working on Polkadot. There's much more centralization, and if you take this to its extreme, especially in terms of payments, you're talking about recreating Visa, which is exactly what we're trying to get away from. And so, a lot of, I'm hearing, I don't know, maybe this group can tell me, I'm hearing that there is this, Bitcoin so yesterday. And I think that's a very big mistake. Bitcoin is the first global, private, digital, rules-based monetary policy. And if you look at what's going on in El Salvador, it's going to be transformational in terms of purchasing power and wealth.
You believe that dictator?
I believe him.
You trust a dictator who really?
I think he's trying to.
You don't think he's a bad actor?
I think he's trying to distinguish. He's trying to invite innovation into El Salvador. He's trying to improve the lives of his people, giving them $30 worth of Bitcoin in their Chivo accounts. From our estimates right now, roughly 12% of all remittances are now going to into those Chivo.
You believe his volcano Bitcoin?
Yes, I think mining is a very good idea, harnessing that energy source. But I'll also tell you what it's doing for this community of El Salvador. Pre-Chivo, only 1.2 million people had bank accounts. Post-Chivo, or now with Chivo, effectively, 3 million out of the 4 million eligible people in El Salvador have banking services, which we think are going to evolve over time. So I'm pretty excited about what's going on and how transformational this will be for people's lives.
I think he's a dictator trying to co-opt a technology, and the Bitcoin community is
That's
desperate to have validation, and they didn't even do their diligence on them.
That's what makes a market.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
You put Bitcoin at 500,000. I think you would admit that almost all technology eventually gets replaced. So the counter argument to Bitcoin being forever is that no technology, no standard has actually lasted the test of time. Most don't last more than a decade or two, and here we are in the second decade of Bitcoin. So I'm curious, in the face of that, most technologies last a decade or two. Why would this one last more than that?
Well, this is the most secure blockchain technology out there. The most decentralized, most secure, and we're really talking about a new monetary order. Having come from economics, mentor Art Laffer, whose mentor was Robert Mundell, who won a Nobel Prize for monetary theory, what's going on right now would have been Robert Mundell's dream. You know, he passed away, but the idea to introduce a global monetary system not under the control of any human being, rules-based, mathematically metered to top out at 21 million units, this is going to transform people's lives, especially see, we don't appreciate this in this country, although perhaps we should, given what's happened to monetary policy recently. But in other countries, look at Turkey today. The Turkish people have lost half of their purchasing power since February.
Sure.
Since February. So wouldn't it have been nice to have a little bit of Bitcoin?
Yeah, if dictators allow it. Tiffany, what are your thoughts? I mean, the Chinese dictators don't allow it, so it's possible. We'll see. Tiffany,
to their detriment, to their people's detriment.
Possibly to their people's detriment and to maintain their power and control. Right, yeah,
correct.
Sure. I agree with
Definitely to the people's detriment.
that. Yeah. In a dictatorship where they've got 1 million Uyghurs in concentration camps, yeah. I mean, these are the worst actors on the planet. I think we'd all agree. Would we all agree?
Oh, it's, you know, I can't understand what's going on right now in China.
Yeah.
You know, we watched how they addressed the COVID crisis.
Horrible cover up, yeah.
Not just that, but I'm talking about the aftermath of it. You know, from a monetary and fiscal policy point of view, they handled it much better than most other countries around the world. And we were thinking, oh my goodness, maybe they're maybe they're changing their ways, want to become the Germany and the Switzerland, guaranteeing purchasing power, and so forth. Instead, now they've turned hostile against capital, and so it's actually to our benefit in the United States that this is happening. Yeah. You know, the more they isolate themselves, the more the lower the probability that they will become the superpower they're dreaming of. Yeah,
I think the Mad King is circling the wagons because he feels threatened. Tiffany, I'm talking about Xi Jinping. I don't care. I already made my money. Tiffany, what are your thoughts on Bitcoin? A lot of young people are like, that's nice, okay, boomer. I put you in the Gen X category, but okay. What are your thoughts on Bitcoin versus sort of emerging platforms that are obviously more feature-rich and are moving at a velocity on a technological basis in terms of feature cadence at a much higher clip?
Well, we believe in being a multi-chain platform. So consumers, creators have the ability to be flexible and use what they want to use, sell what they want to use, sell what they want to sell, really. And so that's kind of how we think about it. And sure, Gen Zs buy Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all the other coins as well. And I think that's going to continue to happen.
Do you see a trend, though, of maybe people saying, you know what, this is kind of boring, it's staying in the same place for a long period of time. I don't want to store a value, I want something that's going to accelerate.
I think with this year of NFTs rising and having such a surge in the market, people are obviously talking about Ethereum a lot because of the use cases that are tied to ETH, but it doesn't mean Bitcoin's going anywhere. So
I would say follow the developers. And, you know, I was speaking to Yassin El-Mandra, our lead crypto analyst, recently, and he said so many of his friends from Penn who started at Facebook and Google and Amazon or Twitter, and they were product managers, which is an exalted role, they're dropping out, and, you know, and it's not even that they know where they're going. They're trying to explore, just as Tiffany is saying, they're exploring. And so I'm watching the developers as I have throughout my entire career, and it's usually the ticket to success.
Absolutely. I'm going to ask the audience just, are you long Bitcoin, you short Bitcoin, or you neutral Bitcoin? How many people are long Bitcoin? Okay, well, I don't have to ask the other questions then. Okay. 100% long, I think. Well, we are in Miami. How many people are along MDMA and psychedelics? Okay, same answer. Everybody raise their hands. They're still high from last night. They were at a Bored Ape Yacht Club. Yeah. You guys came straight here, right? So I think maybe double-clicking on China would be an interesting thing for us to do here. They were participating actively in capital markets. They were sending their products and services here, and then they decapitated Ant Financial, and their greatest entrepreneur decided he preferred oil painting in Hong Kong to building companies, Jack Ma.
Yeah,
He kind of disappeared.
absolutely.
I don't know if you hold Alibaba, or you did.
We did, and we sold it. We sold Alibaba as we saw that happening.
Got it.
In fact, we sold out of all of our Chinese stocks as one after the other, whether it was gaming, online education, basically data privacy, which cracked down on our companies. And then watching them on crypto, it's very interesting though, if they're not allowing exchanges, they're not allowing mining, and we're the biggest beneficiary of that. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
That
was a distinct risk factor, was that they controlled so much of the mining.
Yeah.
Like, who knows what they could do with that kind of a footprint, or increasing that footprint. And
yeah. So we have pulled out of China. There are a few portfolios that own stocks that are consistent with common prosperity, which means they make very little money, so very low margins, and they're doing something for the tier 3, tier 4 cities. So JD Logistics is a great example of that, which is owned mostly by JD.com. But we own very, very few stocks there now because they're unpredictable. So what is going on? I think they are grappling with what most governments around the world after the coronavirus are grappling with. The divide between the rich and the poor, because of asset appreciation, has become so wide that they're going after really the golden goose in China, which is real estate. Now, that's shocking to me and to us, because 75% of all consumer savings in China is in real estate, and real estate prices are starting to fall, as is consumer confidence. So what I think is underappreciated today is China is willing to risk some economic success here to close that divide because of its heritage. Now, they're not going back to the Cultural Revolution, but that's in their DNA.
Which
right?
is a huge blunder and mistake.
Oh, yeah.
If you decapitate the people, not literally, but who knows? I mean, they torture booksellers in that country. I think also there seems to be something, Tiffany, happening here where people are not afraid of China and don't care if they're allowed to participate in that market. You have NBA players like Enes Kanter Freedom, who just changed his name, just calling out LeBron James and Nike. And then, we've got a nice crew of 6 navies, which dwarf the Chinese Navy, doing just a nice holiday tour around Taiwan, the sovereign country of Taiwan. I'm curious your thoughts on China. Are you afraid to speak about it, or everybody seems afraid to speak about this? Are you afraid to speak? Are you guys afraid to talk about China?
No, but I am positive whatever we say will be transmitted. You just have to assume it. Well, I mean,
you're rich. Who cares? Like, when did we as Americans start caring about what dictators think?
So
it's America. We're supposed to lead the world.
Yeah.
Like,
all I'm saying.
Do we care about what Kim Jong Un thinks, or MBS?
No. But if I told you were, that the U.S. government is watching and reading everything you're saying and writing, you'd have a funny feeling about it, right?
You would make an equivalency between the dictatorship of China and America?
No, I'm not. I'm just saying this comfort with being, with surveillance. When I was little, I lived in a town of 250 people in Ireland. And I assumed everybody knew everything I was doing every moment of the day, because that was true, right? I mean,
The Irish are a bit chatty.
yeah, but
Speaking as an Irishman.
tis
yeah.
true, tis true. Anyway, no. So it's just that, it's just, you're asking, why do we have that feeling? It's like, okay, just accept it. It is what it is.
Tiffany, I believe you're Chinese or of Chinese descent.
I am Chinese,
You are Chinese. From China?
from here.
From here. So you're American, but of Chinese descent.
Yes.
Got it. What are your thoughts? And are you comfortable speaking about it?
I mean,
I don't want to put you on the spot again to speak for entire swaths of people like I did for Gen Z.
yes.
But go ahead, speak
I
for the Chinese people.
definitely
It's only 1.4 billion or something.
I'm just speaking on behalf of all the people.
At this point, yes.
At this point. So, I mean, here's how I feel about it. Here's how I think about it. Like what Kathy was saying, crypto really it's a global phenomenon, right? And that's what I care about, and that's what I'm pushing forward, and that's where the innovation happens. And so now anyone, anywhere can participate in these global markets. And that's really just what I'm laser focused on doing and bringing these different communities together across all of these different places.
So in China, do you know, I just don't know the answer to this, are they very involved with NFTs?
They're starting to become more involved.
Okay,
with
that's
NFTs.
interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. We'll see how long the government allows it. Seriously.
Yeah, I just got an iMessage. It's banned.
No, but you know what's so interesting about China? They're not allowing mining, they're not allowing exchanges, and of course this all started with Bitcoin being banned. But if you read very carefully, they're not preventing the ownership. You just can't trade. So,
Yeah, they'll get there.
well, no. Could it be that the top Chinese leaders, you know, with all these people disappearing, right? The top Chinese leaders may themselves own Bitcoin. Now they're not doing anything illegal. They're just not going to trade it. Just keep that private key in the head, right? Yeah.
It's an amazing technology for moving money out of an authoritarian state. I mean, it's extraordinary for that reason.
Without a doubt. And they know it. They're onto this.
Yeah, and they're releasing their own digital renminbi, and they're trying to get everybody to use it. I think the United States is going to have its own, cryptocurrency in the near future.
Digital USDC, yes. But I mean,
What impact does that have, do you think?
Exactly. It's the same monetary policy makers. Okay, so we're going from physical, electronic to pure digital. I don't think there's much difference. The only good thing about this, stable coins are a bridge into DeFi. And so that's important. That's important.
Do you own any tethers?
I don't.
Personally, professionally?
No.
Do you think that's a total fraud?
I don't know.
Would you say that being banned in New York City by the Attorney General from participating in the global capital of finance is a good sign or a bad sign for a financial services company?
No, I don't know enough about it.
Well, they have been banned in New York, yeah.
No, I know that. To be honest, from a centralization point of view, that's our black and white. We've just pretty much stayed away from it.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at spotting those frauds. And yeah, it feels Theranos, Madoff. I mean, Madoff took how many years? Like 8 or 9 years to unravel?
Goodness gracious, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in my experience, Madoff you said how many years? It was 20, 30 years?
Yeah, it was more like 30 years of operating, 9 years of getting reported.
But no one was accusing him of fraud. That's how he got away with it.
None of his clients, they love the predictability.
Exactly, and I remember the firm I was at the time had a private wealth division saying, how can, this can't be right. How can
mathematically impossible.
1% returns each month? Something like that. Maybe it's 0.8, maybe it's 1.2. I would have looked at that if I were studying it. I would have said that's not possible.
Yeah, there was somebody reporting it for like 8 years, and people were like, "You're crazy, you're crazy," and then they were like, "Oh, I guess he's not crazy."
No. But the fact that you're talking about or surfacing the possibility of fraud is a very good thing.
Hey, speaking of fraud, should a company that sold no cars be worth $150 billion? I'm not picking any specific company, but just on a theoretical concept here, if you've sold 0 cars, but if you did sell cars, they would use electricity, should you be worth $150 billion?
So because we had the experience with Tesla, I can tell you, if the company to which you're referring is producing a car that people really want, that is going to delight consumers, then, investing is all about the future. It's not about the now, right? So not necessarily, I mean, you keep using the word fraud. It's not fraud, it's perhaps misvaluation, and that's not their fault. That's the financial world's fault, right?
Yeah.
So I don't call that fraud at all.
Okay. Yeah. Would you call it insane to value a company at 150?
No,
you wouldn't call it insane?
No. Now, are you referring to
Rivian.
Rivian and Lucid? Okay.
Nikola or Fisker? You can just put them all together, and all of them are going to fail in my mind.
We called out Nikola because
that was
we
incredible.
knew what they were saying about hydrogen fuel cells because of our research.
That was
we knew
straight up fraud.
that what he was saying
Confirmed.
was wrong,
Yes.
and that and we didn't know how much fraud there was, but we knew that there was probably trouble brewing there. In terms of Rivian and Lucid, we've spoken to both of them. I really...
You own either of those names?
No, we do not. We do not, but not
That's
because...
all we need to know.
But not because...
You're smart. You're savvy.
I don't know if they're going to be...
You like to make money.
Well, most people would have said to us during the, let's see, early 19, when Tesla was supposed to be going bankrupt, that we were destined for failure ourselves, right?
That was a great call.
Yeah, well...
Congrats on that.
Well, thank you. But in terms of this call, the reason we're not involved with Lucid and Rivian is they're going after niche markets. We've got very concentrated portfolios. If they're not going to go autonomous at the end of the day, and Rivian may because of the Amazon relationship there, if Rivian does, that could be very interesting. But we've talked to both of them, and they're not focused on that right now. And they have to be focused if they're going to win.
If Rivian were to get involved in autonomous driving now, that would be like me preparing for the Olympics in China starting tomorrow. After being out all night tonight, which is my plan. All right, everybody, give it up for Tiffany and Kathy Wood.